Hello, I'm Karen Hollenbach, and this is the LinkedIn Marketer Podcast. Today, I'm joined by Jason, who's going to share his approach to LinkedIn from clarity of purpose to showing up consistently. Welcome, Jason.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for having me.
At Think Bespoke, I help professionals and organizations make sense of LinkedIn with a framework I call the Elevate Map. Really, I want you to think more deeply about why you're on LinkedIn and then refine your presence, connect with your network, and amplify your influence. And I want you to take the time you need to work this out because I believe small, consistent actions add up to meaningful long-term impact. Now, for my listeners, I also want you to hear from talented individuals like Jason within my professional community who are confidently navigating LinkedIn. And it's my hope that their stories will inspire you to take action on LinkedIn. So by way of introduction, I'd like to read out Jason's LinkedIn profile headline. Here it is. Oh, no, I didn't tell you I was going to do this. So
That's all right.
It's so good, which is why I want to read it out. Okay, I feel like my voice needs to deepen. No, I'm going to read it. I was about to say, can you read it out? But I'm going to read it out. Legacy isn't later. Capital L, capital L. Effortless expression for high frequency professionals. This isn't just portraiture. It's visionary identity work. Thoughtful, elevated, and my favorite part, beautifully human. So I met Jason at the MPA Worldwide Conference in Sydney. He'd been highly recommended by a close colleague. I've seen his work and it's next level, really drawing out the essence of the people he's photographing. They are a powerful blend of, and I had to think deeply about this, natural beauty and impact. And then I had the opportunity to hear Jason's insights and I could not wait. I had to wait till he actually walked off the podium at the conference. But pretty much 5 minutes after that, I asked him to be a guest on the LinkedIn Marketer podcast. So Jason, welcome. And thank you so much for agreeing to chat with me today.
Absolutely. I'm stoked to be here. I'm stoked to share. I love this stuff.
Now,
I love to bring a different perspective to it, really. That's my jam.
Yeah, and that's how I really felt when you spoke. And I think you I want to call it you went there. So you talked about things that I feel, I don't want to say woo-woo because I don't want to put people off from listening to this, or that might be the reason why people really want to listen to this episode. But I think that you talked about levels of showing up in a way that was the internal conversation or the inner conversation that people need to be having with themselves. And that's why I was so excited to be talking to you. So in the absence of an official bio, for people who don't know you, how do you, on this particular day of this particular year and this particular moment, feel like describing yourself and how you're choosing to show up in the world at the moment?
That's a very good question and a very good way to stage that question because it changes a lot. Like as I go out in the world and kind of pitch myself or my work or my thoughts and my ideas, it definitely changes. And just a couple of days ago, it kind of occurred to me that, I am a portrait photographer, but that's a very basic descriptor of like the tools I use. It's not what I really do or even what I really, really do. But what it comes down to is portrait photographers, you think about them often creating these images full of beautiful expression. And I realized that the great photographers are the ones out there creating stunning, captivating frames around an expression, like creating. I have this crazy idea. I haven't told anybody this.
Please share.
This is totally mental. I don't even know if I can articulate it like in a soundbite kind of way. But if you took a mirror with a big Baroque frame, like a big elaborate wooden inlaid gold and just some crazy, and looked into that mirror and described yourself. And then if you took a hyper minimalistic, ultra modern steel something frame and looked at and described yourself, I'm willing to bet we would describe ourselves differently, looking at ourselves in different frames. Just like the way that certain languages gender like a bridge, for example. And in one language, like a bridge might be a feminine word and it might be described in feminine ways, whereas in a different language, it might have a masculine gender and be described in more masculine ways. I think it's really all about the frame and the context of what we bring to the table rather than what's in the frame. What's in the frame is important. That's kind of who we are. That's what we do. But how we frame ourselves, how we train people to understand and experience us in every way, whether it's your copy on LinkedIn, whether it's your image, whether it's whatever content you put out into the world. It's the context around that content. It's the frame around the content that really signals and really delivers more relevance to the viewer. Because without context, we're at sea.
And it's interesting that you mentioned the bridge, because when you spoke at the conference, you provided this, you sort of stepped, it was very visual. And for people listening, Jason and I are going to do, I think Jason will do a much better job potentially than I will of describing things, but he showed sort of a sketch of a bridge. And then he showed this picture of a certain type of bridge that is one of those wobbly ones that crosses over. And the way did you take that picture that you'd shared with us of that bridge?
No. All the humans were my photos and everything else was either AI or what I found online. But yeah, all the people were there.
It was one of those bridges that if I were on that bridge with my husband, I would make a point of asking him to walk first, because some people, and I'm sure people listening, everyone's got this person, and you might be the person in their family or in their lives that likes to get on those rickety bridges and actually, shake them. So everyone going across I don't even know if they called a swing bridge.
Yeah, like a big rope bridge, kind of a suspended rope bridge style type rickety thing. Yeah.
And I think you were describing context then.
I was talking about tension. Well, we were talking about context, but I was using tension specifically as the example, because in the first image, like you were saying, it was more of like an engineer drawing, like a blueprint kind of design, where tension is a feature of that structure as a definition, like it is required to hold the bridge up. Tension is necessary. But in terms of framing and context, you can take tension and then you can take that same idea of the bridge, show something a little bit more personal, a little bit more detailed or emotive, and start to connect that bridge to people's real experience. Unless you're an engineer, you're not going to look at that blueprint and resonate with that. You might understand it on a academic, I recognize what that means level, but you don't connect to it. You don't relate or identify with that until it starts to be something that you recognize as something that you can share as your own personal experience or history or your own frame. It's about matching frames.
Yes, and so it was that particular picture that I thought was quite profound. And so when we think about, as I ask you some questions about LinkedIn and your own LinkedIn presence, and I'm sure you may also share some stories with us with clients, I'm particularly interested in some of those fabulous insights that you shared with us during the conference. And it was really one of the reasons I really wanted to talk to you is you really got inside my head in a good way. And cool. It was, I saw sort of some real alignment with what I try to do with my clients, just think about it, actually give how you show up on LinkedIn, some deep thought, because this is the online version of you. And of course, your portraiture is part of that. But sure. I imagine looking at that's why I described your headline, because you've got this really careful use of words. You've got this careful use of capitalization. You've put that deep thought into your words as well as into your photography. So I'm going to ask you.
I'm obsessed with words too.
Well, I remember when you
possibly
said
more
that.
than images.
And you and I just happened more than images, because you and I
possibly.
It is maybe permission to change your mind.
It's one of my favorite creative outlets is the English language. It brings me no end of joy, honestly.
Yes, I live that too, and it's one of the reasons why I do what I do. So, and I can see that in the way, particularly you've written your headline. So, first official question around, and really in terms of alignment to the Elevate map, because I'm really trying to get people to think about doing this thinking first and then taking that thinking into the way that they show up.
Yep.
So when you think about your presence on LinkedIn, what's the core message or impact you want to be known for? And how did you arrive at that clarity? Because I imagine the headline that I just read out to people was not a 5-minute exercise.
No, God, no. That's years of obsessing over how to describe what really matters to me better. You know, how to really stand out in a way that goes, oh, that's what this guy's about. Okay. I either want more of that or that means nothing to me. I'm going to go look somewhere else. I'm looking to divide people from the very first word, whether you're in this camp or you're not. You know, so a long time ago.
Can we pause on that? Can we? I want to hear what you're about to say. What you just said is profoundly important for people listening. Can you say it again? Well, because I want people to really, really understand this concept.
Yeah, I mean, I am looking to polarize people, and it only comes from a much deeper understanding of niching. You know, I wasn't familiar. I didn't get into business. I got into photography. And then I realized, oh shit, I need to run a business around this. I'm not going to be a photographer who does business. I realized I need to be a business person who does photography. Like, it's a different mindset. I had to jump wholeheartedly into this business learning thing because the photography stuff I was already really into. So when I got on this journey of building a business, somebody was like, niching. And I was like, oh God, that's such a horrible word. I want to be able to do everything for everybody. Why would I cut off revenue streams? I'm kind of good at everything and I really enjoy a bit of everything and all. And I found 100 different ways to rationalize my way to not niche. And finally, somewhere along the line, I was just like, you know what? This is what I love more than anything else. This is what I do better than anyone else. I can deliver at a higher level, one specific thing better than freaking 99% of the population. So I did. I leaned into it. But niching, deciding what product or service or market or client you're going to serve, what you're going to deliver, what you're going to do. It's only the very beginning, because you can hyper niche, and you don't necessarily have to, but I am a very specific person. My work is very specific. It's for very specific people, and I need to make sure I'm finding the people who need exactly what I do. Like, people don't come to me just to get a quick LinkedIn headshot update. That's just not what it's for anymore. You know, I need it. I need the people who have already achieved something and their image hasn't kept up with their own expression and expansion. And they need to be able to communicate this next level of themselves. I often find people at a tipping point, at an inflection point. And so making sure those people in that moment, stepping into a greater version of themselves, know that I've got you. This is what I'm here for. And so
can we pause?
Yeah.
So if you're listening to this and you had a physical response to what Jason just said, that is an embodied response. If you got goose pimples, or you had to pull over, you had to
or repel,
or you hated it. Oh yeah, good point. Good point. What's this guy talking about? I'm moving on to the next podcast. That's the point. That's like, listen to that. This is this clarity. And I know I keep interrupting you. It's sharing some gems, cool. And I want people to pause on those gems. And this is a big reason why I wanted to talk to you today, because you bring an insight that helps people truly think about, well, am I there? Does that sound like me? Oh, I want to be there. How do I get there? You know, stop listening, move on. Or, oh, I need to really keep listening to this guy.
A lot of what I find is like the resistance to leaning into that specificity, to that very deeply personal, very fully aligned, because it's a scary place to have to go, to go internal, to look at yourself with true honesty and really say, this is who I am. This is what matters. This is the way I see the world. And because of my personal beliefs, experiences, this is what I do. And to start to describe your skill set in a different way by using your heart set and your mindset, you know, what you.
Oh, tell me what that means, please elaborate.
Well, it's what, you know, there's only three things we can communicate in the world, and I call this communicating in 3D. So you can communicate what you feel, believe, what you think, and what you do. Right? There's kind of like only three levels of things we can communicate: our belief level stuff, our thought feeling level stuff, and our action doing, like skill set level type stuff. And when you can align all three of those, then the communication becomes much more powerful. It becomes much more personal. And I'm not talking about like, oh, my childhood and this is what I believe. I'm talking about no. When I pick up the machine, that the tool that I use to do my job, mine happens to be a camera, yours might be a pen, whatever it happens to be. When I pick up that tool, the things I do with that tool are different because of how I see the world. You know, I believe that, you know, thoughtful, elevated, and beautifully human it's not just a catchy phrase. That's how I want my portraits to feel. When you're the viewer looking at that, I want that to feel just so present and connected, because what matters to me, this is where I go off into my beliefs level, but
I love hearing this.
But what matters to me is like this human connection. We are slipping further. We are relinquishing more of our thinking to the machine and to AI. Like, I don't get me wrong, I freaking love AI. I totally use it. I'm subscribed to ChatGPT. I'm all in. I love it. But there is a human element of this existence that many of us will still want to not just maintain, but curate, you know, like as an art form, humanity itself, as AI allows things to become commoditized, you know, it's next to free. Everybody can have it. It's very democratized. Like the thing that's going to be special is that analog. It's like a record, you know, and people go still collect records because they want that analog experience. Everybody can have the digital experience. It's available for $10 a month to have unlimited access to everything. But if you want that physical expression, that physical experience in your life, it's a different thing, and you got to go looking for it, and you got to be lucky enough to find it, and only so many people can own it or have that, you know. And so
And it's not luck. I don't think it's luck. I think it's hard work. I think it's that intentional sort of how are you going to show up in the world? What are the things that are going to be analog? What are the things that are going to be digital? So you mentioned these people that you sort of uber niched, you got really, really clear. How did you arrive at that clarity? Because it's very clear from your LinkedIn profile. How did you decide, because you and I had that, and I'm not going to put words in your mouth, but you and I said, oh, I noticed that your portraiture photos are more of this type of person. And I noticed that, and you're like, yeah, definitely. This is, so are you comfortable or okay? I know you're going to be comfortable, but are you okay talking about sort of what your niche is at the moment? And we want, everyone has permission to change their mind because podcast interviews are a thing that sort of lives on forever in the digital world. But at this point in time, how did you arrive at your current niche? And what is your niche?
So my niche is really, in my LinkedIn I only hesitate because in my LinkedIn profile, it says high frequency professionals, people that care about articulating themselves in a way that they've crafted and curated themselves. It's also people who really are the face of their business. They are the one out front, or the face of an industry, even a lot of times. So, but the thing is, it's not really for people who are looking for visibility necessarily. It's for the people that already have visibility and they just need a world-class suite of visual communication pieces that they can share in their comings and goings as they, interact with media in all different ways, as speaking and interviews and awards and magazine submissions and all kinds of stuff like that. Books.
And is there a gender focus? Because I work with men. I'm not trying to pigeonhole you here or put you in a box.
No, it's not a pigeonhole.
I work with both men and women, and it's a mindset. I did notice that a lot of your photos were the ones that you chose to show at the particular conference that I attended, showcased a certain vintage of powerful woman
in a way
that I have never seen before. Like it really, really stood out to me. And that's what I meant about the natural beauty, that there was this, you were positioning your subjects. I don't know, is that what you call people that you take a photo of?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, technically, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. In a way that it was immensely beautiful, immensely powerful in a distinctly human way. And I don't always see women on LinkedIn, it's more glamorous, some of the pictures I see. And so that's what I really loved about it. And I think that could apply to men as well, that you could be doing exactly that. Yeah, it
does. The only thing is women of a certain level of professional achievement, which also tends to equal a certain age. You know what I mean? It's what I'm talking about. This inflection point where all of a sudden, like a 50-some-year-old woman who I work with a lot of lawyers, they have gotten to a point in their profession where they are fully grounded and certain in what they do best. They are being acknowledged across the board. They are so comfortable looking in the mirror at this point, and that's when they often come to me. The guys come to me because they were often told by the women, just go see him. They're kind of not as discerning or concerned about it.
Yeah.
The women often seek me out, and the guys are just kind of following orders, generally speaking. But yeah, look, it is, and it is. So that would be my niche. But I found this because I realized I needed two things. I wanted everyone to use my images. I want my images to go do work. I want them out in the world. I started in advertising and seeing your stuff on billboards and bus. I actually just saw a bus stop with one of my images just a couple of days ago.
Oh, I love that.
It's very gratifying. But nobody cares about somebody eating a bag of potato chips, So I was like, well, what can I do where everyone will see my work? This stuff is going to go out in the world and be used, but people deeply care about. because what people deeply care about is like their families and their kids and their dogs. And that's great. And it matters, but nobody uses that stuff. It lives in an album. It sits on your wall. It's lovely, but that's not gratifying for me.
Yeah.
I needed the two-prong, deeply care about, and will go out and use. And that's how it kind of became headshots turned into, some might say, personal branding turned into, this level of portraiture that just, I don't want to talk about the portraits as much as I want the learning here to be the presence, being able to see yourself with a guide or not, with me or not. It's taking the time to see yourself so clearly, to understand your own motives and vision and value so clearly that it just aligning with the content, with the images, becomes easy. We could be talking about writing. You could be talking about your copy on your website. But if it comes from this deeply personal, aligned place, full of intention and meaning, it's going to come out. You're going to express that in a different way. And it's going to land in the hearts and minds of your audience more powerfully, more specifically, drawing some to you and pushing some away.
So in terms of that, I think people listening now, if they're still here, which I imagine a lot are, would be like, yeah, okay, yes, I want what he's having. So how do people do this? How do they refine, or it's not even refining yet. It's how do they shape and think about these things? What questions should they be asking themselves? Because I can hear you saying, well, they've kind of decided. They know who they are. They've given, you didn't use the word, they've given themselves permission. But I often see clients say, I've realized I'm actually sort of highly capable at the top of my game. And I see people who are a lot less competent than me, sort of outperforming me based on their LinkedIn profile. And I need to sort of rectify that. So they've been in the analog world, doing a great job, climbing corporate ladders, transforming organizations and communities. And then they realize, oh, hang on, there's this sort of digital landscape that I need to tend to. I call it tending to their LinkedIn garden. So if someone's listening to this and they're like, yes, I think I'm kind of at this tipping point, what questions, I'm sort of putting you on the spot here, but I sort of feel like you can handle this beautifully. What questions should people be asking themselves, or what sort of exercises should they be doing? Because you gave us some really fun exercises at the conference that everyone had to sort of answer questions, and it just put your brain in a very different, put my brain in a very, it got me thinking differently, which is always really exciting when someone has the ability to do that. So about 50,000 questions in that one question there for you to answer, please.
Well, it's a tricky question, because the hardest thing is always to look at ourselves. It's always easier to see somebody else's bullshit or problems, or it's always clear to look externally. It is definitely difficult to look internally. One of the activities that I played with everybody at that conference was a bit of a shortcut way. I call it identity alchemy, and it's using I don't know how to describe. It's using it's kind of a this or that kind of frame, like are you more like a bench or a stool, for example? It has nothing to do with you. So it's not what I, sorry, this is not the cleanest.
That's fine. Permission to, this is good. Just sort of, yeah.
So basically, are you more like a bench or are you more like a stool? That's not what you prefer more, but which one do you kind of identify with more? There's just going to be a response. I'm more like a stool. I don't know. It's just what I feel. I would gravitate towards a stool when given a choice. And then you can, I have a list of 50 of these things. And then you can go back. I can share this with your audience.
I'll put it in the show notes for everyone listening. Yeah.
Go back and have a look at what those things mean. You don't spend a lot of time thinking about it. Am I more like alcohol? Or am I more like sugar? Am I more like a mountain, or am I more like a stream? And then you go back and kind of assess, well, a bench is more about like, I don't know, like kind of sharing a space with somebody. A stool is a bit more singular and individual. It depends what it all means. Like to me, a stool means I get a higher perspective on things. It's not really, I'm not avoiding a shared experience, but I want to have that elevated, higher perspective. So it's all these very subtle, simple things where instead of going, well, what are your values? And you go, well, you write down integrity and trust and communication and we care. And like, sure, that's all great stuff, but it's not personal. It's not specific. So if you go put those words into your content, it becomes meaningless. There's no frame around it. It's a lovely expression on a face, integrity, but there's no frame around that. There's no, somebody challenged me just the last week. What is integrity to you anyway? And I was like, well, actually, I kind of have this weird little thing that lives in my head. Like, how you do one thing is how you do everything. And that's, you could say, look, walking your talk, or there's a million different ways to explain integrity or describe why you believe what you believe. But for me, how you do one thing is how you do everything. If I'm going to put the care and trust, the care and craft, into something that matters to me, then it will be how I do everything that matters to me. And so it's putting a personal frame around it that gives the word the meaning. The word itself is too big and amorphous otherwise.
That's why I found that exercise. So it was interesting to do. It was interesting, sort of the sort of this or that options that you gave us. It was interesting, the conversations that you had with yourself, me, myself, and I afterwards, the conversation that I had with peers about what they chose and why. So I love those exercises that keep you thinking. But it also moved, I think the importance of that exercise, and people can see it in the show notes later, is that for me, it moved the conversation around, and I don't really like using the word personal branding either, but that's a common, I like this idea of reputation management, or just like how about being you, being human. This is what I'm much more comfortable with, which is why I love your profile headline. I think that exercise moves the conversation beyond, you've got to be authentic.
Yeah. I freaking hate that word.
What does that even mean?
The word authentic. It's such a trash word at this point. It's just been overused and it's rendered lifeless now, just like trust or integrity or any of these other words that, unless you really have something specific to frame it, authenticity is just, I don't know. It's a bit of a lifeless word now.
Yeah.
I'm not in love with it. Authenticity. It's funny. Authenticity is kind of like a byproduct. It's kind of like the happy result of different activity. Like if you're trying to get healthy, losing weight is not necessarily the best motivator for living a healthy lifestyle. You might want to live a healthy lifestyle, and losing weight is a happy byproduct of that choice, of that action, those constant choices and those daily actions of living a healthy lifestyle, whatever that happens to be. And the losing the weight part is kind of the happy byproduct or side effect of those higher level, more aligned choices. I don't care so much about losing weight, but I do care about being able to be here for those that need me in the best way possible, you know? And so that level of personal commitment leads to that happy accident of losing weight. So I believe authenticity is the exact same thing. By curating and crafting your personal expression in the world in every way, authenticity is a happy byproduct of that. It's a goal. It's not a goal you go for.
Yeah. And I think
I'm all process over outcome.
Yeah. No, I think that's a really good distinction. And I feel like what we're really talking about here is, and I've used the word permission a couple of times, which is interesting in this conversation.
Permission's a huge word.
But it's permission to be yourself. This is really what the invitation you offered people, and your clarity of that when you talked about the niching and who you, I want to use the word serve. Yeah. I don't know if that's how you describe sort of how you show up with people, but it's really honoring them at this point in time where they've made some brave, deep, conscious, intentional decisions about how they want to navigate the world in a way that feels aligned with the elements that you talked about. And so I think it is that I liked the way you teased out authenticity, because I think people who, we've all got blind spots, that people who are sort of forced into the limelight, whether they're in an executive team or they're a figurehead for their organization, because it's sort of, I think you and I have some similarities in sort of dealing with those sorts of, or working with those sorts of people, that if they haven't done that inner work when they're stepping into the limelight, they can really struggle with what being authentic. Yeah. It's like, well, just be yourself. It's like, yeah, but I'm a really private person. It's like, that's okay. You can be private. Okay. You don't, you know, like you can still have a photo taken of you and still write about yourself on LinkedIn, and you can still be private. Like it's, you don't have to you don't have to fundamentally compromise who you are, but you do have to know who you are. Yeah.
Yeah. And again, it's the hardest thing to take that step and look within. There's no shortcut. There's no like template to use. Yeah. There's no, like, you just have
Here are the 3 steps Jason recommends. No, that's not happening.
Well, you know, like there's like there's this there's this one meditation that kind of got me kicked off on this whole idea, that it starts off with, this is not going to be easy for a lot of people. And it wasn't easy for me, and it's changed dramatically over time. I just want to say that it starts off with, how do you want to feel? Like, oh, okay. And then there's like space to like think about, like, so how do you want to feel? So when I started this practice, right. And so meditation, yoga, any of these practices where you have to participate in your consciousness, where you have to participate in your physical expression, where you have to participate in the space you take up in this world, mentally and physically, any of those practices are going to help, right? Like that's just, anyway. So, but this
but not an aside, not like, and pause. If you're not spending time in nature, if you're not meditating or praying, if that's your cup of tea.
Yes.
If you're not writing in a journal or having deep conversations with yourself in whatever form that looks like.
Yes.
You're missing a whole part of yourself.
Yes. Yeah. We owe it to ourselves to pay attention to the space that we take up in this world, because we are constantly communicating with the world, with ourselves. It's nonstop, you know, letting that communication, that conversation run on some background default, I believe, is a total, it's missing an opportunity, as well as not being true to, you know, what we're capable of. But so
the meditation,
not as an aside, but as an aside, like, it matters. It's worthwhile. And in this particular meditation, right, the first question is, how do you want to feel? And at first I was like, oh, I want to feel good. Oh, sorry. The instructions are, you can only answer in a positive, right? So you can't go, I don't want to feel shit anymore. You know, like that's not, no, you have to answer in a positive. I want to feel good. The next time you do that meditation, good is no longer acceptable. You're like, no, I can do better than that. I want to feel great. 2 months down the line, you're like, I want to feel bold. I want to feel powerful. Like a couple more months down the line, I want to feel alive. I want to feel like tingle. I want to tingle with opportunity. Like, how do you want to feel? I want I want to feel electric today. Like there's the levels of this, and not in terms of scale, but in terms of specificity. I will sometimes put this meditation on and go, I want to feel unparalleled certainty right now.
I love
whatever it happens to be.
Yeah.
And that is a matter of training yourself to ask better questions and to expect yourself to be able to come up with better answers over time. That is not a quick practice. Those very fine, nuanced levels don't come around so quick. And then the next question in this meditation is, how do you want to be thinking? It's like, oh, I want to be thinking positive. Yeah. And then eventually it's like, oh, I want to be thinking like clearly. Oh, I want to be thinking creatively. Oh, I want to be thinking strategically. Whatever, but it can go off into these wildly nuanced places, because then the next question then is like, well, if you're already thinking and feeling that way, what does that mean I can be? What does that mean I can do? What does that mean I can have? And so each time it becomes its own outcome. It's like
I would like to say gift.
The pieces are always different, so you get a different gift at the other end. It's wild. It's wild. And so those are the kinds of practices where it's like, it's pretty straightforward, but it's not easy. It's simple, but it's not easy. And there is no shortcut to that level of understanding yourself and being aware. And then going through these activities like the alchemy, the image alchemy, this or that kind of practice, where you get to go, oh, look, what I did this at a workshop just a couple weeks before I was with you guys. And I used the shield and the sword as the example to kick off the discussion afterwards. And this woman in the front was like, oh, I picked the sword because of this tarot card, and the tarot card means to me. And she went off on this wildly personal, amazingly detailed, individual tangent that was so relevant and meaningful to her. Nobody else would have said that. Nobody else in the room full of 100 people would have said that. And when you can start to describe what matters to you in those really personal ways, you can start to describe your skill set, why you do what you do, and what it is you really do for people in different ways. And that's when your LinkedIn profile can come alive. That's when all of your messaging can come alive, because you've framed the context. Again, it's about understanding context versus content. We are so trained to create content. We are not trained in our lives, unless you are doing meditation and yoga and things like this, to think about our context, to consider.
Yeah, and they're powerful tools. The quiet, that quiet is a very powerful tool that I've really only discovered in the last sort of 7 years, and it's been such a gift. And that's why when when you spoke with us at the conference, you sort of gently opened the door, you revealed that about yourself. And then I don't know if you were reading discomfort in the room. I certainly didn't feel it, but we had a real variety of people. Some people would have been totally lacked self-awareness, not been ready for a personal awakening. And then other people who would have been regular meditators. And this was a professional global recruitment network, conference. But the fact that you opened that door was a really good example of revealing what matters to you, revealing what you believe in a way that really motivated me to go, oh, there's so much to you. Like, the way you come at this is so interesting. You have to
depersonalize it. You have to take the pressure off of people. Yeah. It's the same thing I do in my portraits. Like, I realized quickly that if you sit there in a portrait session feeling this pressure, trying to get it right, trying to find the right answer, trying to get to the truth of the matter, you're always going to be chasing it, because it's about the outcome. That's why I'm so process over outcome. Everything is process over outcome. I know that this path leads me to the thing I want to get at the end. if I start chasing the outcome, I'll never get there. If I start trying to control the outcome, we're constantly going to be struggling. If we just
what do you mean we're not in control? What are you saying?
Oh, it's not, we're, it's about, I think it's about enjoying the control we do have and relinquishing it when we don't need it. And so much of like going, well, what are my values?
Yeah.
It puts so much pressure on us to have that certainty and to have that control. And that little activity, the image alchemy, allows you to circumvent that, oh God, but what if that's but am I, and does it, and should it be this, and should it, but maybe this is more important. Maybe my audience needs to hear, and thinking externally. And it lets you kind of skip all that and just go, no, this is more like me. I'm a sock puppet instead of a marionette, and it's like, what does that even mean? Let's go back and look at that later.
Those are the conversations I was having with myself. So I'm interested. We've talked about your love for words as much as images. We've talked about this refinement and this idea of niching, and people listening will really get a sense of you through the exercises that we've talked about, but also the experiences you've had with really acknowledging, well, how do I want to feel and how do I want to think? When you're, so you've got your niche sorted, your LinkedIn profile is representing you in a way that is, if we use your profile headline as an example, really gives a sense of who you are for and who you may not be for. How do you, do you show up on LinkedIn? What do you do when you're on LinkedIn? Do you network? Do you post? Do you have a game plan around LinkedIn?
I am a tragic man. I am terrible. I really am. I hit it hard when I'm inspired and motivated, and then I disappear for months at a time. I really do enjoy interacting on LinkedIn. I follow some fascinating people. I don't go looking there for an audience necessarily. I treat it more like a bit of a paper trail, because I know people are always going to go looking, and when somebody does land on me, they're going to go due diligence and see what they can see that's out there. And I want there to be plenty for them to go, oh, this guy is, okay. I want there to be a nice long trail to follow where you're very clear by the end of a few posts what I'm really on about. But I'm not consistent. It's pretty bad.
And no judgment here. I mean, LinkedIn is a hungry beast. And I think at the very least, it's really the belief, honestly, for some people to hear that go, oh, great, I'm not alone. I think my recommendation to people at the very least is to have a LinkedIn profile that you're proud of, that you feel really represents you. The rest is all about your capacity and how analog or digital you are and what industry you're in and where you're making connections and where you're it's contextual. Here we are.
Right.
It's really around oh
my God.
I've just had a picture fall off my wall in the middle of this. But that's fine. Everything's okay. The dog wasn't underneath it. I think that's the most important thing. No animals were harmed in the recording of this podcast. All right. And so amplifying, you mentioned that if people did read a post from you, they would be very, very clear about sort of what you stand for. What's your sort of, you love words and pictures. What's your content of choice on LinkedIn? How do you amplify your voice on LinkedIn beyond your profile, if you do at all?
Yeah. I mean, I'm constantly writing. I'm constantly trying to say what I say better. So that to me is it's just an art form. I love it. It's something I love to do. So being able to articulate myself in new and interesting ways is a challenge that I just revel in. One of the things that I do look to do is to, by always looking to separate myself from other photographers. I like to look what language they're using and try to flip it and go the complete opposite direction. That is a bit iconoclastic of me, though. That's not everybody's path. That's not everybody's route. That is not a recommendation. That is just my personality.
This is interesting, right? So one of the things that I did when I first put that flag in the ground as a LinkedIn expert, there weren't a lot of us in Australia at the time. So we're talking about 14 years ago. And I had a look at what other LinkedIn experts globally were talking about. And I often say this to clients to do. So I don't necessarily, I guess what I'm saying is I agree with your approach, because I encourage people to look at people they admire, look at people in their competitive set, whether that be this person might be gainfully employed, they might not be running their own business, they may be leading an organization, but look at people in similar roles to them, look at their profiles, look at how they're showing up on LinkedIn, and decide what is it that they love about what that person's doing, what is it that they hate about what that person's doing, and then what is their version, like what.
Well, I have a great example. So just within my own industry, like it's just a really clear in the personal branding space. Do you have any idea how many times photographers out there will talk about empowerment? I think that is highly insulting, personally.
Why?
Because what can I do to empower you? What do I have? What can I bring to the table? You are empowered. You are a 1,000 suns powerful creature. Like you like, there's nothing that I can do that will empower you. Nothing I can show you that it's about taking that empowered individual and playing with all the different ways we can express that in life, in our most effortless way. Empowerment. I don't think that's not what I'm offering, you know? And again, that's a beautiful way to kind of put that fork in the road for people. If you're looking for empowerment, you probably need somebody else. If you feel wildly empowered and you need somebody that can show that, then we might have a conversation. But it's about giving people that fork in the road as often as possible to go, oh my God, yes, or oh my God, no.
Yeah. And I think
each of those is equally powerful and valuable.
I think the lesson, well, not that people need lessons, but the thing to consider that I'm reflecting on as you share that is it's as important to know the answers to the question of what I am as it is to be able to answer what I am not.
And that is often an easier place to start. What I am not is often an easier place to go, because there's somehow less pressure when you start to question yourself like that with these big questions, well, what am I? Is it Emerson? Is it one of those old school authors?
If you quote Thoreau, I might be in there, but Emerson, I won't be.
I'm gonna butcher it either way, but
that's fine.
The thought of the quote was, don't get up in the morning and describe yourself as a noun, describe yourself as a verb. If you can, that is a wild experiment to do. If you can, who am I? What am I? I'm a photographer. I'm a husband. I'm a father. Those are all nouns. Those are easy. We use those all the time. I am creating, I am becoming, I am evolving, I am consciously choosing, I am deeply loving. Like what verbs are you? Like, that is a fucking hard thing to go at. And like, it changes your entire perspective of how you can view yourself when you're forced to use verbs instead of the nouns that we rely on.
My response to that is challenge accepted. And I hope that's the response of listeners. I think that you offer a really inspiring, thoughtful, I'm going to say provocative way of viewing the world. And I think that's what people need right now. The encouragement to be uniquely themselves. I
Hmm.
think, which is, it's crazy that that's maybe where we are in the world, that is what being truly analog, even though we're both talking about presenting yourself digitally. So before we sign off, is there any other pearls of wisdom that you would like to share with my listeners, who are really people who you'll love this. I had someone following me here on LinkedIn a couple of days ago, and I reached out to her and sent her an invitation to connect. I'm very human on LinkedIn. I don't use plugins to manage my communication. So I reached out and said, thank you for following me here on LinkedIn. Your profile looks really interesting. I always just look at something about the person's profile and start a conversation if they're interesting. I don't always do that, but I will do it if that person's interesting. And she responded back in the message and said, thank you. I came across you through your podcast, Karen, and it's lovely to hear someone talking about being human. On LinkedIn. And I mean, I'm laughing because I'm so happy that resonates with people, but there's also a sadness there.
Yeah, for sure.
That is what stands out to people. So any more pearls of wisdom before we sign off?
The last thing I think I would say is just keep iterating. Like, if as a professional, you are currently in a fascinating transition moment or really evolving, what you're doing consciously, or even being thrown into something that you didn't necessarily expect to be thrown into the bigness of what you might be encountering in a new role or something. Keep iterating this stuff on LinkedIn. Like, this stuff doesn't sit here for long on my profile. I'm constantly shifting it and tuning it as I understand myself a little bit better, as I understand what I'm doing for others a little bit better, as I understand what matters to me more and what I would like to create in the world. I come in and I shift it. I change it. I adjust pieces of it to match where I'm at. It's like you were saying earlier in the conversation, a minute from now, it might be a different answer, but that's the joy of it. That's the beauty of, once you put it in there, it's not locked there forever. Come back to that in 2 months and have a look and see if you really go, wow, that's somebody I would want to click on and know more about. If not, do a little bit of work. Spend a little time, make it a bit more real. Maybe even scare yourself a little bit by being a little too personal, but play with that. And what I find is all these different ways of expressing myself, whether it's my copy on my website, whether it's a LinkedIn post or even my profile. I assess things in my business differently based on what I say about myself in different places. And this process of articulating yourself and iterating, I think, regularly helps you clarify your purpose and evolve more consciously and purposefully. And I think that's a beautiful thing. It's something to play with. And I think it should be fun.
There's just so much goodness in there for us to consider, and it plays to this idea that I encourage people to consider, which is we are all a work in progress.
Yeah. And to lean into that,
And so I could talk to you for hours. I think for the sake of our listeners, we are going to say goodbye for now. So if people want to reach out to you, where is the best place for them to do that?
Yeah, I'm Superpower Portraits all over the place. Yeah. Or Jason Malouin on LinkedIn, it's also Superpower Portraits. You'll find me like that. I love to talk about this stuff. Like, hit me with questions, like whatever. I'm all for it. It's very cool.
Thank you. I really appreciate you being a guest on the LinkedIn Marketer podcast. I will put all of the things that we talked about for our listeners in the show notes. Thanks for listening to the LinkedIn Marketer podcast. I hope today's conversation gave you a fresh way to think about, well, I'm going to say lots of things, and certainly how you show up, not just on LinkedIn, but in the world. And maybe also, first and foremost, how you're showing up for yourself at the moment. Permission to be a work in progress, permission to iterate, a few challenges. I know there's one in there that I'm going to accept about the verbs. I'm going to go away and have a good think about that. The reality is, in tomorrow's journaling session with me, myself, and I, when I light my frankincense candle and sit there with my lovely pen and journal, I will be describing myself in the context of verbs. So thank you for tomorrow's journaling session, Jason. And remember, for those regular listeners, or perhaps you've tuned in for the first time and made it all the way to the end of today's episode, your LinkedIn presence is about discovering what matters. You've got lots of food for thought here today for that. Refining your presence, iterating your presence, connecting with your network in a way that feels relevant for you, amplifying your influence, maybe even having a bit of fun along the way, because small steps taken consistently really can have a big impact in this world where it is unique to be human.